I remember the exact moment I realized how different my online identity was from my everyday existence. Late one evening, I was perched on my bed, laptop balanced on my knees, immersed in a lively chat as Serafina. My online circle was debating a game storyline, and I felt so relaxed. The words flowing across the screen were witty, bold, and clever, just like my avatar. In that space, I never hesitated about how I expressed myself. Serafina was confident in ways I, Mike, rarely dared to be offline. When I finally logged off for the night, I looked around my apartment's dimly lit living room. Bills cluttered the coffee table, half-eaten takeout containers perched on the counters. It felt distinctly unglamorous compared to the vibrant persona I had inhabited just minutes before. Still wearing a pencil skirt and a loose blouse, I got up, walked over to the full-length mirror in my bedroom, and studied my reflection. I was 22, short brown hair, a slightly wiry frame, and a face that I always thought looked too plain for all the makeup tutorials I tried. The skirt felt good against my legs, but something about my reflection felt incomplete. Even though I wore the clothes Serafina might have chosen, I didn't see that poised, spirited person looking back at me. I was just Mike in a skirt, and that contrast lingered in my mind. I carefully removed the eyeliner I had applied earlier. It was a small act that had taken me months to perfect without leaving smudges everywhere. My best friend Jade had once pointed out that I always seemed happier when wearing even a touch of makeup. She knew I had a fascination with feminine clothing and presentation, though we rarely spoke about it in depth. Jade was the kind of friend who didn't press for details until she was sure I wanted to share. It was a trait that allowed me to test boundaries without fearing judgment. The next morning, I woke up to the sound of my neighbor's dog barking through the wall. I sighed, rolled out of bed, and got ready for my job at a local tech support center. It was a small company that helped people with hardware, software troubleshooting, and so on. I was the quiet one at the office, usually more comfortable explaining file paths than sharing personal stories. My coworkers were friendly enough, but I never hinted at my personal life. I guess I never felt like I could let my guard down. I pulled on the typical uniform, jeans, an old t-shirt, and a jacket. The entire time, a small voice in my head was thinking about the pencil skirt folded neatly in my dresser. There was a strange emptiness, as if part of me was packed away whenever I left for work. Still, I was determined to move through the day as calmly as possible. Sitting at my cubicle, I watched lines of code scroll across my computer screen. I had a dull headache from the night before. I hadn't slept well, thanks to my late-night chat sessions. Across from me, a coworker named Darren swung by my desk. "Hey, Mike, you see the new guidelines the company emailed out? They're installing more security checks on our personal laptops." I minimized my personal chat app and looked up. "No, I haven't checked yet. Anything serious?" "They're probably just paranoid about data leaks," Darren replied. He shrugged, shifting from one foot to the other. "You might want to be careful with any side projects or personal stuff on that machine." "Right," I said, forcing a casual nod. I used the work computer mainly for legitimate tasks, but I occasionally browsed a forum under Serafina's name. The idea of my workplace poking around made me anxious. I decided that from now on, I'd be extra cautious about toggling between windows. Darren left, and I leaned back in my chair, thinking about how much of my life I separated. Even at work, I turned into a quiet guy who barely spoke. There was no sign of Serafina's flair anywhere near my cubicle. The contrast made me feel like I lived two separate lives. Part of me wondered if I was just too scared to let them merge. Later that afternoon, when my shift ended, I found a message from Jade. "You free tonight? Feel like grabbing some dinner?" I texted back a quick, "Yes, see you at 7, and shut down my computer. By the time I arrived at our usual diner, Jade was already seated, scrolling through her phone. She glanced up, waved me over, and greeted me with a bright smile. She was 23, with short, fiery red hair that matched her bold personality. Jade was wearing a sleek leather jacket over a floral dress, a mix of edgy and soft that she somehow pulled off effortlessly. "Hey, stranger," she teased. "You look exhausted." I dropped into the booth. "I feel it. Work was long." "So," she said, leaning forward, "how's life on the other side? As, Serafina?" I laughed, glancing around to make sure no one was eavesdropping. "She's good. Busy. I was chatting online until way too late." Jade's eyebrows rose. "Meeting interesting people, I take it?" I shrugged. "Yeah, there's a group I've gotten close to. Gamers, creative folks mostly. We ended up diving into a big discussion about design. We made jokes about adding sparkly outfits for a character's costume. It's fun." Jade's smile softened. "I'm really glad you have that space to express yourself. Though I wonder if you ever think about, bringing that flair out into the real world more often." I hesitated. "I try. But you've seen me, Jade. When I try too hard with makeup, it doesn't match. I'm not graceful at it." She folded her arms. "I've told you 1,000 times, these things take practice, and you're not giving yourself enough credit. That outfit you wore the other day looked good. You just get in your own head." As if on cue, the server came over, and we each ordered a meal. Once we were alone again, Jade continued, "Seriously, you should come out with me sometime. We could go to a place where nobody cares how you dress, like that new club on the east side. I know the DJ, she's super chill." I swallowed hard. The idea of stepping into a public place wearing clothes more aligned with Serafina's style made my heart race. "I'm not ready for that. It's one thing to dress up at home." "All right," Jade conceded, "but I hope someday you'll think about it." We chatted about lighter topics for the rest of the night, but that conversation stuck in my mind. Once again, I felt the tug of war between wanting to explore my style outside my apartment walls and fearing how others might perceive me. After dinner, Jade dropped me off at my apartment. Before I got out of her car, she said, "I mean this with all the warmth in my heart. Don't keep hiding everything forever." Her voice was gentle. "We only get one shot at living, I gave a tight-lipped grin. "Yeah, I hear you." That night, I returned to my small living room, flicked on the light, and surveyed my modest collection of skirts, blouses, and maybe 2 or 3 dresses. They hung on a rack along with my regular clothes. I hadn't exactly hidden them. They were just there. But it wasn't like I had visitors strolling through often. My apartment was my sanctuary. I booted up my laptop, logged on as Serafina, and noticed a new private message from someone with the handle Nightingale. We'd crossed paths in a group chat about styling tips for avatar-based games. We'd occasionally commented on each other's threads, but this was the first time they'd sent a direct message. "Hey, Serafina, I saw your post about making your avatar's style bolder. I thought it was awesome that you're experimenting with different looks. I'm in a similar place offline and love talking about it if you're interested." Something about their honesty surprised me. Most direct messages I received were about gaming or bantering about silly things, but they sounded sincere. I typed back a quick reply. "Hey Nightingale, thanks for reaching out. I'm always excited to swap ideas on styling. Are you exploring fashion offline too?" We ended up messaging back and forth for hours. Nightingale turned out to be a college student named Alexis, who lived a few states away. She talked about her experiences trying on different outfits, navigating her campus with them, and feeling more at ease in certain circles than others. Her experiences felt strangely relatable. I told her a bit about my own situation, how I felt a gap between Serafina and my offline self. I admitted I wasn't sure if I could muster the courage to break free from my usual routines. Alexis responded, "I totally understand. Sometimes the hardest part is just stepping outside that door, wearing what we want, eyes forward, and not letting the world's stares get to us. I paused, rereading that line. Could I ever do that? The thought was equal parts thrilling and terrifying. A week passed, and work remained routine. I was quiet at my desk and friendly enough to the people around me, but my mind was always wandering. Jade noticed I was distracted and invited me to her place one weekend afternoon, saying, "I just got a bunch of new makeup. Let's have a practice session, no pressure. You can teach me some tips you learned from your forums, and I'll show you new products I found." I arrived at her small apartment that Saturday, arms loaded with a few items of my own, a beloved foundation, some eyeshadow palettes I'd tried to experiment with, and a handful of brushes. Jade cleared a space at her cluttered desk, placed a mirror there, and pointed, "That's all yours." We spent the next couple of hours laughing at our mishaps. Jade tried on a bright fuchsia lipstick that, in her words, made her look like a cartoon villain. I tried blending a smoky eye, messing up more times than I could count. She gave me pointers on contouring cheeks, though I kept complaining that my face felt too round. Midway through, Jade peered at me thoughtfully. "You know," she said, "the way you're looking right now, I see more confidence than usual." "You do?" I asked, eyeing my reflection. I wasn't so sure. She nodded. "Yeah, sure, maybe the eyeshadow is smudged in places, but you have this glow, especially when you talk about something you really love, like picking out the perfect colors." Her words struck a chord. It was one of those small moments that felt momentous, like a tiny validation that I wasn't completely out of my depth. We spent the rest of the afternoon playing around, taking a few silly photos. Jade suggested we document our progress so we could see improvements over time. Around sunset, I decided to be a little bolder. "You know what, Jade?" I said, leaning against her kitchen counter. "I actually brought an outfit. Could I try it on?" Her face lit up. "Of course." I emerged from her bedroom a few minutes later in a loose-fitting navy blouse and a knee-length black skirt. I paired them with black tights. Jade reached for a pair of ankle boots she had in her closet. "We're the same shoe size. Try these." With the boots on, I walked around her living room, feeling a mix of excitement and nerves. It was the first time I'd worn something like this outside of my own apartment. Although it was just Jade's place, it still felt like a step forward. She gave me a thumbs up. "You look good," she said. "I mean it. That blouse brings out your eyes." I flushed with both embarrassment and something that felt like pride. "Thanks. It's weird. I feel weird, but in a good way." Jade rummaged through her own closet and slipped into a matching blouse, though in a different color. Then she slung a small purse over her shoulder. "Feel like going for a quick walk around the block, just to get some fresh air?" My stomach clenched. "Outside?" She nodded gently. "Just around the block. I'll be right there with you." Every instinct told me to say no, but a smaller voice inside me reminded me that I wouldn't be alone. And it was nearly dusk, so fewer people would be out. Maybe this was manageable. I swallowed my fear and said, "Okay." Stepping out of Jade's apartment building, I felt my heart pound. With every step, I half expected passers-by to glare or mutter something cruel. But the street was pretty empty, just a jogger in the distance, someone walking a dog, a car pulling out of a driveway. Nobody seemed to pay us any special attention. Jade stuck close to me, talking about random things like a new movie she wanted to see and a music festival coming to town. Her chatter helped distract me from the swirl of emotions. We circled the block and returned to her apartment. I felt like I had just crossed a mental barrier. Even that simple walk buoyed my spirits, reinforcing that maybe the world wouldn't end if I ventured outside like this once in a while. When I got home later, I felt a flutter of excitement recalling those steps around the block. I realized something else. I wanted more moments like that, even though they scared me. I wanted to inhabit more of Serafina's boldness in my day-to-day life. That night, I jumped online and told Alexis, Nightingale, about it in a long private message. She sent me enthusiastic congratulations, mentioning how she remembered her first time going outside in an outfit she truly adored. She said it felt like stepping into a bigger, wider reality. Over the next few weeks, I found myself daydreaming about trying out small public outings, maybe not at clubs, but casual settings like a coffee shop or a bookstore. Jade, ever supportive, offered to accompany me. In the meantime, my routine at the tech support job continued. I still wore the same jeans and t-shirts, but I occasionally painted my nails in subtle, neutral shades that might go unnoticed. No one at work mentioned them. Either they didn't notice, or they simply didn't care. I was relieved. One Friday evening, Jade convinced me to join a small get-together at her friend Kira's apartment. She said Kira was a mellow type, and a few close friends would be there, just to talk, play board games, maybe watch a movie. Jade assured me everyone there was open-minded. It seemed like a safe environment to test out a more Serafina look. Before leaving, I spent an hour in front of my mirror, trying on different outfits, redoing my eyeliner when it got too heavy, changing lipstick shades from a bold red to a softer pink. Eventually, I settled on a simple black skirt, a fitted maroon top, and a light jacket. My reflection showed a nervous but determined person. I practiced my posture, kept my shoulders back, and tried to channel some of the confidence I always had online. At Kira's place, I hesitated outside the door, heart pounding. Jade stood next to me, wearing her usual combination of a stylish dress and a leather jacket. She placed a supportive hand on my shoulder. "You look great," she whispered. "And trust me, you're going to have fun. Let's do it." We walked in. The apartment was cozy, full of soft lighting and a faint smell of popcorn. A handful of people milled around the living room, sipping drinks and chatting. A tall guy in a beanie, introduced as Marcus, smiled and said, "Hey, welcome. Jade's told us all about you." I caught Jade's grin from the corner of my eye. "All good things, I hope," she teased. A woman with long braids named Fiona waved from the couch. "Come join us. We're about to start a board game." I nodded, noticing them glance at my outfit for a brief second before returning to friendly conversation. No one acted weird. No one stared pointedly. If they had questions, they kept them to themselves. As we all gathered around the coffee table, my pulse slowed to a more normal pace. We played a collaborative game, the kind where you work together to solve a puzzle. I found myself engaged, laughing at the inevitable moments of confusion. Fiona at one point said, "Mike, you've got the best memory for these card combos." And it took me a second to realize she was talking to me. Not because I disliked my name, but because I'd been so focused on the moment that I forgot my usual caution. She said it in such a natural tone that I relaxed further. Later, when we took a break, Marcus offered me a soda. "So, you're Jade's friend from school, right?" he asked. "From around that time, yeah," I said. "She's been, helping me try new things." His gaze flicked momentarily to my skirt, but he just smiled. "That's awesome. Jade's always trying to get people out of their shells. Glad you could come." It was such a small exchange, but it put me further at ease. We ended the night watching a comedy, then parted ways around midnight. Jade drove me home, and I spent most of the ride in silence, replaying the evening in my mind. "Proud of you," Jade said quietly, once she parked outside my building. "Tonight was a milestone." "Yeah," I managed, feeling a lump in my throat. "Thanks for inviting me." Before bed, I looked in the mirror, still in the maroon top and skirt, makeup a little smudged from laughing so hard at the movie. It felt good. I felt good. And for a change, I didn't mind the reflection. In the following days, I found myself trading messages with Alexis about the evening's success. We swapped stories of small gatherings, supportive friends, and occasionally the less friendly strangers we'd encountered in our attempts to be ourselves. She mentioned she was going to attend a local meetup for people exploring different style expressions and offered to share details if I ever wanted to visit. It was tempting, but we lived too far apart for me to just drop by. Still, the idea that such gatherings existed intrigued me. One morning, a few weeks later, Jade texted me unexpectedly. "Change of plans. We're going to that new lounge tonight. I'll pick you up at 9. Wear something that makes you feel fabulous." I sat on my bed, phone in hand, heart pounding. The lounge? I'd heard about it. Part dance floor, part bar, popular among students and artists. I could already picture the swirling colored lights, the bass from the speakers vibrating through my chest. It was a much bigger scene than a quiet board game night. My initial impulse was to say no. I typed, "Not sure if I'm ready," but then paused, recalling the small strides I'd made in recent weeks. I remembered Jade's comment about not hiding forever. I backspaced and wrote, "I'll try. Let's do it." "Yes," Jade replied almost instantly. "We'll have a blast. Trust me." The hours leading up to 9 o'clock felt surreal. I rummaged through my closet, eventually choosing a pair of slim-fitting black jeans and a sparkly top that I'd never dared to wear outside. It wasn't overly showy, but it had a hint of shimmer that caught the light in a fun way. I carefully did my makeup, opting for a smoky eye again, though this time with a bit more patience than usual. I slipped on ankle boots with a slight heel to complete the look. When Jade arrived, she whistled approvingly. "Look at you! Sparkles and everything!" I laughed, feeling flushed with equal parts pride and dread. "I'm definitely outside my comfort zone." "That's the point," she said with a gentle nudge. We drove to the lounge, the city lights passing by in a blur. My anxiety grew as we pulled up and heard the thumping music from within the building. A line of people stretched along the sidewalk, all dressed to impress. My palms grew sweaty, but Jade looped her arm through mine and guided me to the door. Inside, the place was alive with color. Blue and purple lights flashed across the dance floor, and a DJ spun upbeat tracks that pulsated through the crowd. A bar lined one wall, where people in small clusters sipped cocktails and chatted, shouting over the music. The air smelled of perfume, cologne, and that faint electric scent of excitement. I looked around, trying not to appear as overwhelmed as I felt. No one paid any special attention to me, at least not in a negative way. A few people glanced our way, maybe noticing my sparkly top, maybe thinking Jade looked cool. But there was no hostility in their stares. If anything, it felt like a space where people expressed themselves freely. We navigated to the bar, and Jade ordered a couple of drinks. I took a sip of mine, something fruity, and tried to steady my nerves. After a minute, she tugged at my hand. "Dance floor," she mouthed over the music. I shook my head emphatically, but she rolled her eyes, grinning. "Come on, just for a bit." Reluctantly, I let her pull me onto the dance floor. The crowd was dense, people swaying and bobbing to the rhythm. I could feel the bass beating in my chest, and I tried to let myself sink into the flow of it. Jade started moving in that carefree way she always did, arms up, letting the music guide her. Next to her, I tried to match the beat, feeling a bit stiff at first. But then something happened, a surge of adrenaline, or maybe a spark of confidence. I remembered the times in my apartment when I danced alone, letting myself go with whatever music I had on, imagining I was Serafina at a grand party. Slowly, I let that memory blend into the present. My hips started to loosen, my shoulders no longer scrunched up with tension. The lights swirling overhead began to feel more magical than intimidating. After a couple of songs, Jade leaned in, smiling so wide. She shouted over the music, "See? You're a natural." I laughed. feeling the sweat at my temples, the warmth in my chest. For a moment, it was easy to forget my fear. I was just another person on the dance floor, enjoying the night. Later, we retreated from the floor to catch our breath. We found an empty table near the back. Jade looked at me with a proud sparkle in her eyes. "How do you feel?" "Exhausted," I admitted, grabbing a napkin to dab the sweat on my forehead. "But happy. It's intense here, but in a good way." She gave me a half hug. "I'm glad. This was always my favorite part of going out, just losing myself in the music, and I thought it might do you some good too." I scanned the crowd again. There were so many different styles, different ways of dressing and moving, people in bright neon outfits, people in black leather, even a couple in matching sequined jackets. Somehow, in that kaleidoscope of individuality, I felt less alone. For the rest of the night, we alternated between dancing and talking. A few of Jade's acquaintances stopped by to say hello and chat. None of them seemed fazed by my outfit or my makeup. They seemed more interested in whether I was having a good time. By the time we left, somewhere around 2 a.m, I was wiped out, but strangely elated. During the car ride back, Jade asked, "So, are you going to come out with me again sometime? Maybe I can coax you into something even bolder." I laughed, gazing at the passing streetlights. "Let's not push it too far. But yeah, I might." She gave a playful shove to my shoulder. "Let's go. That's what I like to hear." When I finally crawled into bed that night, still in my sparkly top, I couldn't stop smiling. It was as if each new experience chipped away at that wall that divided Serafina from Mike. I never thought they could coexist so openly, but here I was, inching closer to a version of life where I didn't feel so split. My newfound comfort pushed me to try one small public outing by myself, a coffee shop. It was a cozy place with warm lighting and a welcoming vibe. I chose a late morning to avoid the busiest crowds, dressing casually in fitted jeans and a soft sweater that had delicate patterns on the sleeves. I went light on the makeup, mostly focusing on concealer and a subtle lip tint. I took a deep breath before stepping inside. The barista at the counter barely blinked, simply took my order for a latte and went about their business. As I waited, a middle-aged woman near me complimented my sweater. "That's such a cute pattern," she said. "Where'd you get it?" "Online," I replied, heart hammering. "Thanks." She smiled politely, and then her latte was called. She took it and waved goodbye. That was it. No drama, no pointed looks, just two strangers chatting about clothes. I found a small table, sipped my latte, and opened my laptop to check messages. Nightingale, Alexis, had sent me a link to a post about a local event celebrating all kinds of fashion. A hint of longing tugged at me. I wondered if something like that existed in my own city. I made a mental note to look into it. As I watched people come and go, I realized how many individuals blend into the world with their own stories. Nobody was staring at me. I was just another person enjoying a coffee, reading something on a laptop. It was both anticlimactic and profound. I let my shoulders relax, a small grin tugging at the corners of my mouth. Back at the tech support job on Monday, I felt different, calmer. Even though I wore my usual jeans and t-shirt, the knowledge that I could dress differently outside of this environment gave me a boost of confidence. During lunch break, Darren commented on how I seemed less stressed lately. "You're glowing, man," he said, half joking. "Did something good happen?" I shrugged, offering a vague smile. "Just had a nice weekend, you know. Went out, tried new things." He nodded with a grin. "That's awesome. Keep it up." A few more weeks went by. I balanced my day job, my online persona, and my occasional outings with Jade. I even reconnected with an old friend from high school, Tyler, who was in town for a visit. Over coffee at a diner, Tyler said, "You seem more comfortable in your own skin now. Last time I saw you, you were so reserved I could barely get 2 words out of you." I paused, swirling my mug of coffee. I guess I've been doing a lot of introspection, trying to figure out what makes me happy. Tyler nodded thoughtfully. Well, I'm glad. Feels like you're on the right track. Gradually, the line that separated Mike and Serafina blurred a bit, making day-to-day life more cohesive. Sometimes I'd dress in ways that felt more neutral. Other times I'd push the envelope a bit, especially if I was going out with Jade. While I was still cautious, I felt less weighed down by the fear that used to dominate me. I stopped assuming the worst from everyone. Though not every day was easy, there were definitely times I caught stares on the street that made me anxious. I found more resilience within myself to keep going. One day, Alexis invited me to join a video call with a few friends from our online community. I hesitated, but eventually agreed. During the call, I appeared in a light, breezy blouse, something that showcased my personal style. The group cheered me on, asking questions about how it felt to explore my wardrobe offline. Their warmth reminded me of the acceptance I felt with Jade and her circle. The next big challenge arrived when Jade spontaneously arranged a group dinner at a restaurant to celebrate her birthday. She told me it would be a small gathering, just the board game group plus a couple of her other friends. Still, it was a semi-formal place, and I wanted to look nice for the occasion. We arranged to meet outside the restaurant. Standing on the sidewalk, I tugged at the hem of my knee-length dress, a soft burgundy one that I'd spent days debating whether to wear. Paired with a light jacket, it felt elegant but not overly flashy. I'd done my makeup with slightly winged eyeliner and a subtle lipstick. Then I spotted Jade across the street, wearing a floral dress that made her hair pop even brighter. She waved, crossing over, and gave me a big hug. "You look fantastic," she gushed. I felt a surge of gratitude. "Happy birthday," I said, offering her a small gift I'd wrapped, a vintage necklace I knew she'd been eyeing at a local shop. She squealed with delight, quickly putting it on. We entered the restaurant together. A host led us to a table where Kira, Marcus, Fiona, and two new faces were already seated. They all greeted us warmly, wishing Jade a happy birthday and beckoning us to sit. Marcus glanced at my outfit briefly and gave a friendly nod, just like last time. As conversation flowed, I noticed how relaxed I felt. No one was asking invasive questions or making comments that implied I was out of place. Instead, we discussed everything from new movies to Jade's favorite memories to random anecdotes from work. At one point, one of the new faces, a friend of Jade's named Megan, remarked on how nice my dress was. She asked where I got it, and we ended up talking about the brand and its sizing. It was a light-hearted conversation that felt perfectly normal. Midway through dinner, I glanced around the table. Laughter broke out over a joke Fiona made, and Jade was doubling over in mirth. The glow of the restaurant's pendant lights cast a soft sheen over everyone's faces. I felt a wave of gratitude that nearly overwhelmed me. Here I was, dressed how I wanted to be, celebrating a friend's birthday in a casual, supportive environment. It wasn't some extraordinary event, but to me, it was monumental, a sign of how far I'd come. Yet I also knew life wasn't a fairy tale. Outside these circles, there would be people who didn't understand or who might judge. But for tonight, none of that loomed over me. When we finally finished the meal and stepped outside, Jade gave me another squeeze. "I'm so proud of you," she whispered. I smiled, blinking back a sudden rush of emotion. "Thank you for helping me get here." In the weeks that followed, I went through a period of questioning. At times, I wondered if Serafina and Mike were just different facets of one whole person, or if I was supposed to choose. But the more I let myself exist in spaces that embraced various expressions, the less I worried about that division. I didn't have to label it perfectly. I just had to keep moving forward in a way that felt honest. One evening, I was back online, chatting with Alexis and the group. We joked about how we had progressed from strangers behind keyboards to a supportive bunch exchanging tips on everything from makeup to emotional well-being. Alexis mentioned an upcoming festival in her city, describing it as a vibrant celebration of art, music, and style. She invited me to visit if I ever got the chance. I felt a spark of curiosity and told her I'd think about it. The next day, I was mindlessly scrolling through social media when I saw a post from someone in my local area about a small fashion event. It seemed tailor-made for people who enjoyed experimenting with style, open to everyone. They were showcasing local designers and hosting friendly workshops on creative expression. My heart fluttered. I recognized that this could be an opportunity to meet more people with similar interests. I told Jade about it, and she immediately urged me to go. Even if you just go as yourself without dressing up, it could be inspiring, she said. As the day of the event approached, I wrestled with jitters. I almost backed out twice, but Jade kept me on track, reminding me how important these experiences could be. On the morning of the event, I selected a flowy blouse and sleek trousers, a middle ground between formal and casual, and took extra care with my makeup, leaning into a softly blended eyeshadow. I arrived at a converted warehouse downtown. Outside, a colorful banner flapped in the breeze. Inside, it was bustling with activity. Rows of stands displayed everything from handmade accessories to unique outfits that mixed vintage and modern elements. People drifted around with cameras, capturing the eclectic styles. Nervously, I made my way from booth to booth, striking up small conversations with designers. One booth in particular caught my eye, run by a designer named Kara, who specialized in gender-inclusive fashion. She had a range of pieces that were fluid, working on multiple body types. I found myself admiring a jacket that was embroidered with intricate patterns. Kara noticed my interest. "Want to try it on?" she asked. I bit my lip. "Sure," I said, slipping it over my blouse. When I gazed at my reflection in the booth's mirror, I was struck by how it somehow matched my style. Refined, comfortable, with a bit of flair. "It suits you perfectly," Kara said warmly. "You've got that quiet confidence thing going on." I nearly laughed. "You must be talking about someone else. I'm not that confident." She shook her head. "Maybe not always, but trust me, it's there. Sometimes it just takes a while for people to see it in themselves." Her words echoed Jade's sentiments. I smiled, deciding to buy the jacket. We chatted a bit about style, and by the time I walked away, I felt lighter, as though each step I took around that warehouse made me more sure I belonged there. Toward the end of the day, there was a small workshop on personal expression in fashion. I joined the group, which gathered in a circle on fold-out chairs. The facilitator asked everyone to share one piece of clothing or an accessory that made them feel good. I hadn't planned to speak, but I summoned the courage to talk about the sparkly top I wore to the lounge and how wearing it in public felt like a major milestone for me. As I explained, a few people nodded supportively, and no one seemed to judge. Instead, it felt like they understood what it meant for me to step outside my comfort zone. After the workshop, a few attendees came up to me, complimenting my story and offering their own anecdotes about big leaps they had taken with fashion. We laughed together, comparing notes on the best places to find certain outfits. I left the warehouse that afternoon feeling a renewed sense of possibility. Back home, I carefully hung my new jacket in the closet, then flopped onto the couch, exhausted from all the social energy I'd spent. My phone buzzed. It was Jade, asking for an update. I texted back a long paragraph detailing how the day went, finishing with, "Feels like I'm finally learning to just be." She replied with a string of celebratory emojis and a message that read, "Proud of you, always." That evening, I chatted with Alexis again, describing the highlights of the local fashion event. She responded with excitement, urging me to visit her city's festival if I ever got a chance, promising me a fantastic time full of creativity. I said I'd think about it, though part of me was already daydreaming about booking a weekend trip to experience that larger event, stepping even further beyond the small sphere I'd known. In the following weeks, I continued to balance my job, my blossoming social life, and the moments of stress that still came. There were days when I overthought every glance from strangers, but I kept pushing through. Jade, true to her word, made sure to check in on me. Sometimes she'd send me pictures of clothes she thought I'd like, or new makeup techniques to try. Other times, she'd randomly text me quotes that reminded me I didn't have to conform to anyone's expectations. The nights I spent as Serafina online also felt different. Instead of being purely an escape, those sessions were now a playful extension of who I was discovering offline. The lines blurred in a way that left me feeling more at ease, as if Serafina had guided me toward a fuller experience of life, rather than just existing as a separate persona. Months later, a moment arrived that might have once seemed unimaginable. One Friday night, Jade invited me to a live music event at a small venue known for its eclectic crowd. She asked if I wanted to dress a bit more adventurous. I pondered for a while, then decided to go all in. I chose a flowy black skirt and a bold silver top, pairing them with my newly beloved embroidered jacket. My makeup was sharper, winged eyeliner, a deep burgundy lipstick, and a hint of shimmer on my cheeks. Walking into that venue, I felt the now familiar mixture of excitement and nerves. But as we danced to the band's lively music, I realized I felt freer than I ever had. I wasn't fully rid of my nerves, but they no longer stopped me from moving forward. I locked eyes with Jade, who smiled so broadly, giving me a thumbs up as we spun around to the music. In that moment, I felt the pulse of the crowd, the warmth of the lights, and the swirl of guitars and drums. It was almost hypnotic, luring me into a space where I could just exist without overanalyzing how I was dressed or what people thought. The swirl of silver in my top seemed to reflect the stage lights, making me feel like I was shining too. When the set ended, Jade and I stepped outside, letting the cool air wash over us. My ears still rang from the volume. She turned to me, panting slightly from all the dancing, and said, "That was a blast. Wow." I nodded, taking deep breaths. "Yeah, I didn't think I'd have that much fun." She nudged my arm. "I think I see you glowing again." I couldn't help but laugh. "People keep saying that." "Well, maybe it's true," she teased, leading us toward her car. As we drove back, I gazed out the window at the city lights. I felt a sense of something coming full circle. Memories of staring into the mirror at the awkward reflection of Mike in a skirt now felt far away. That memory wasn't bad. It was just a reminder of a different time when I felt uncertain. I still had questions about my path, but I was no longer paralyzed by them. At my apartment door, Jade gave me her usual hug goodbye. "Thanks for tonight," she said softly. "You're doing amazing, and I'm here whenever you need me." I thanked her back. After she left, I unlocked my door and stepped into my living room. The faint scent of lavender air freshener hung in the air. I slipped off my jacket, draped it on the couch, and caught a glimpse of myself in the hallway mirror. The makeup, the outfit, the slight disarray from all the dancing, they all combined into a person that felt familiar and yet new. I couldn't help but smile, remembering how the night's laughter and music filled me with a sense of belonging. I grabbed a makeup wipe, preparing to clean my face. Then I paused, looking one more time at my reflection. I recalled my first attempts at eyeliner that left me with raccoon eyes, the frustration of clothes that never seemed to match my imagination, the hours spent as Serafina online, dreaming of feeling that bold and articulate in person. Standing there, I realized I had reached a place that felt raw and real, one not defined by running away or by being split in half, a place where I could dance in a sparkly top or sit quietly with a latte, wearing whatever I pleased, where I could navigate the bustling lounge with Jade or the local coffee shop on my own. I let out a breath, thinking about how a single online persona had sparked so many changes, pushing me to try things I never thought I could handle. From secret late-night dress-up sessions to small walks around the block, and finally to clubs, lounges, restaurants, and local events, it had been a winding path full of hesitations and breakthroughs. And now, here I was, flicking off the hallway light, walking into the bedroom, setting my phone on the nightstand. I settled onto my bed, the faint residue of the night's exhilaration still buzzing in my veins. My thoughts drifted to Jade's unwavering support, Alexis's inspirational messages, and the acceptance I found at local gatherings. A quiet contentment welled up in my chest. I didn't need every question answered tonight. I had the freedom to continue exploring, discovering new layers of who I could become, and perhaps that was enough. With that gentle understanding, I drifted off to sleep, dreaming not of some distant fantasy, but of the colorful, vibrant, and very real world I was finally learning to embrace in my own way.
Did you like the story? Hit that like button and tell me what you thought in the comments. Do you want to hear more stories? Subscribe and hit the bell. For exclusive content and early access, check out our Patreon. You can find the link in the description, or you can watch any of the videos shown on my right. Thank you for watching and see you in the next video.